All right, y'all. Welcome to the Lower Chesapeake Bay Fishing Report, part of the Great Days Outdoors podcast network. I'm your host, Luke Barton, and each week we'll be talking with expert charter guides and subject matter experts about what's happening in our local waters. On this show, we advocate for sustainable fishing practices aimed at keeping this amazing fishery healthy and thriving for generations to come. As the fishing season adjusts to cooler temps, some target species are just heating up. So buckle up for another great episode. Let's jump in and find out what's been biting. Hooked on fishing? Then you're part of the local community that Long Bay Point Bait and Tackle cares about serving and giving back to, providing you with the right selection for each season's target species. They're your one-stop shop to gear up with the best bait, tackle, and insider tips to catch your next trophy fish. You can fuel up right out front on the water and then chat with the crew inside for hot tips on where they're biting. So swing by today. Long Bay Point Bait and Tackle, where your fishing adventures start and finish with your trophy catch on their scales. Listen up. AFTCO has a promotional gift for all Great Days Outdoors Podcast Network listeners. They're now offering a camo sunglasses cleaner cloth with any purchase of AFTCO products. For those cold, wet, or windy days, I especially enjoy my weatherproof fabric barricade jacket, as well as my Helm insulated fishing gloves. All you got to do to get your coupon code is text LCBFR to 779-345-2918. You'll get subscribed to our email list, and we'll send you the promo code via email. All right, y'all. Welcome to the Lower Chesapeake Bay Fishing Report, part of the Great Days Outdoors podcast network. I'm your host, Luke Barton, and each week we'll be talking with expert charter guides and subject matter experts about what's happening in our local waters. On this show, we advocate for sustainable fishing practices aimed at keeping this amazing fishery healthy and thriving for generations to come. As the fishing season adjusts to cooler temps, some target species are just heating up. So buckle up for another great episode. Let's jump in and find out what's been biting. All right, guys. Well, welcome to this week's show. It's going to be fun. It's freezing cold outside, but there are still fish to be caught and fish to be chased. So we're going to dive into what we've been anticipating for several weeks now, an offshore report to talk about these bluefin tuna that are coming down off the coast of Virginia. Welcome to the show, a good friend of the show. How are we doing this morning, Captain Bill?
Captain Bill's ready to go, man. Wild and ready. Checking in.
Captain Bill aboard Plain Hooky Charters. Man, I got to say, it's like, I don't know that there's a more exciting species to go after than a bluefin tuna for two reasons. The sheer utter size of these things, but then obviously they're just so good to eat. So I've been out one time. I know you've been out one time. Tell me everything. Like, what's been happening? What's going on out there? Have you seen a tuna? Have you not seen a tuna? What's going on?
Well, as a matter of fact, I got a fresh one for you because we were among a pack of probably 10 to 12 boats yesterday out, 20 to 35 miles to the east. And we were all fishing, looking for bluefin. We had calls on the radio for bluefins flying out here, bluefins flying out there. Heck, I'll be honest. I pulled the brakes at the tower yesterday. We were on the way to the tower and we had, maybe 50 to 80 gannets piling into the water full blast in front of us. So we put them over. We had some good marked some tuna, saw some dolphin fly out. So it was like, all right, those are dolphin. And then we saw busting in a ball in a certain pack and an angle, the way they only sit in one spot. Some tunas were busting right there.
Mm-hmm.
So as hard as it was for us to pull it out, and leave, we did. We were like, all right, our plans are to go out there. So we went a little further and looked for we found a whale, nice big whale, some birds working, some good marks. And we got fishing. I happened to see a few more boats in our area. So, our area, none of it's our area. Anyway, had a good time trolling. Had a good feeling of fish. Got up top, ate that breeze in the face. Honestly, it said 27 when I left the house. By the time I left, it was down to 24. So in the 10 minutes I woke up, the time I left, it dropped 3 more.
Oh gosh.
Water temp was 51 degrees, and by the time we got out there far enough, over 20 miles, it was 53-degree water. So you can have a 25-degree air, but if you got 53-degree water right off the water 10 to 20 feet. It's 45. It ain't the end of the world. But up top on the tower, it's a little toast, little nippier.
Yeah. It's a special kind of cold too, man. Like when there's a little bit of a breeze and you're sitting out there and you're just taking that wind to the face. Like, just for people listening to get the picture, Captain Bill's got this beautiful Seahawk custom built with this gorgeous cabin of curtains. But instead of being down there, he goes up top in the tower where he's just face to the wind. So
you got to eat it to get them, man. Plus you can get your feel. You can see the birds. You can get your, you look at your sonar, you get your feel, you watch your lines good. And, you got to drive out there. You got a lot of time to collect thoughts. But last year, for example, I was up top and it was cold as it gets. It was January 4th and I saw a little pack of terns. They weren't really gannets, just little terns picking the water in piles.
Mm-hmm.
I had developed an area where it was like, 3 packs of them. And I was working my way in circles around these 3 packs. And, we had already broke a nice one off. He had eaten the DTX minnow. And for some reason, that rod just didn't have a leader on it that day. And we learned the hard way on that one. So we lost a real nice DTX, lost a real nice fish after a good fight. And the second, so I went downstairs to make a peanut butter and jelly. I had Ed up top driving. And I look out back and I see a pole. I mean, we got clickers on these things, but with the boat and everything else, and I just see a pole moving up and down on a bent butt. And I'm like, Matt, I think we're on. And Matt said by the time he turned his head to the back, he saw a lightning flash. He said it was me running by full blast, and I grabbed that rod and pumped away on him, got him tight, ran Ed down. Ed jumped back. Ed jumped down, by the way. Ed didn't come down the rail. Ed completely flew down the rail when we hooked up. He just jumped out. He's on the deck cranking away. Switched over to Matt. The fish made a really good run for a whelk pot. We call them conch pots.
Whelk, yeah.
Yeah,
whelks.
More than whelks. Anyway, they got the pot strings out there, and of course the fish knows where they are, so he's running right at them to get away and break us off. So, and we jump back. Ed jumps back in, turns the fish again. Within 45 minutes, we had a 390-pound fish to the boat. And then another 45 get this thing in the boat. We didn't. Our setup for the time being was more muscle powered.
Mm-hmm.
But we did have a come along, and the come along only got him high enough, and then it slipped. So when we freaked out, when that thing almost went in the water, we had so much adrenaline and almost losing it. The 3 of us had drugged that sucker in the boat, man, up and over the rail. It's amazing. It almost hit Matt on the way in, but almost 400-pound fish, and real fun to catch. Like you said, the reward is worth it all. Now you might have to fish though. That's the difference. Is people like to go catch fish. They got these cards, these chips, these buddies. Everything can give them to the fish.
Yep.
But without those things, when you have to actually just do it naturally, it's a little tougher. You'll never think you're in the right spot. You'll have fish jumping out of the water right in front of your boat, and you'll think you need to go somewhere else, and then you leave, and you should have been back, and it'll frustrate you in this area. Now up north, and the fishing is insane. They kept 5 to 7 fish. They're having a different fishery up there. Now they got more bait. We know that. They got more schools of menhaden and things to pile up and get these things to drive around and see the bird play and the activity to know where to drive through to get these bites.
Yeah.
You could be in the open, in the blind, and you can get a fish. That day we hooked ours up. We were in between those 3 bird piles I was telling you about. I said, Ed, grab the wheel, go in between these 3. And sure enough, we hooked up in that area. Just happened to be the luck of the draw.
Yeah, it almost feels like a tournament day where like you feel like, man, I should be here or I should be there, and then you're like kicking yourself. You're like, well, when I first pulled back, we had good marks, and then we just kept going. We should have stayed where we were. So, for those who are either brand new to this or who are going to be hopping on with a buddy, what's your best philosophy or advice when it comes to getting located? Do you stick it out in an area all day, or do you make a bunch of moves? Like, what's the pro move out there?
Well, I'll tell you what, a lot of the guys now, look, it's, this is one of those fisheries, not like a tournament, where you can actually tell people where you're fishing.
Right.
You can actually lead people to fish. Once you've caught one, it's not that big a deal to tell them, but you were just in a pack of buddies and a pack of boats, and it's a respect and courtesy thing not to blow their spot up. Now, blowing their spot up on a day that you only have 8 boats in the whole ocean, that's not blowing anybody's spot up. Everybody will be able to work together that day.
Yeah.
But a day that's slick, calm, slick willy, and you've got the blue center console, and you got the, and you got
the orange center console.
The orange center console, these guys, man, I fish with both of those boats, and they're out there all the time. There's all these different guys, but you're gonna have things happen, like,
oh man,
you're gonna have you don't want as a professional, when it's your job and you're out there working for a living, you'd rather not everybody and their brother knew exactly where you were. So maybe you'd have a better chance for your clients, because you're not killing the fish. You get business out of it. It puts food on your table. So you're fighting for your own survival. Obviously,
Yep.
Like to make a living, and catch fish makes people want to catch fish. So that's all goes hand in hand. They understand that. They get it, but it's their day too, man. It's their Saturday. They busted their ass all week long, and they want to get out there, and heck, they've been watching you on a Tuesday hook one up. So they want to get out there and get that feeling. That's why they have a boat. That's why they love to fish, and they're right too. Now, if they find you and they use the radar, if they had a tip the night before and where to go, heck, man, I like it when it's everybody knows where everybody is, and they're biting in 3 to 5 different spots, and you can go to all the spots. For example, last year, Eric Myers, good friend of mine, he fishes on the Heads and Tails charter. He's like, yo, Bill, get back inside here. He called me back into the channel. He was catching him in there by the yellow buoy. He said, get over here, Bill. They're by the yellow.
Yep, he called us in there too.
Yeah, and then you got Andrew Flory last year. I'm riding out every day going to these sea bass wrecks, and I'm looking at the CB line, and I'm like, man, there's so many birds and bait patches. Flory tells me a couple days later, yeah, man, we smoked them at the channel.
Yep.
right at the channel at this time. And you got what it is. It's kind of like a logbook in a journal where you remember where you were last year at that time and you try that spot. Because
Yep.
that worked great for us for sword this year. I was like, you know what? It hasn't worked for 2 years, but 3 years ago, this thing worked. It's supposed to work. I'm going again. And I just
And then boom.
we hooked up 401k and it was, the rest was history. So you got to work on your notebook, bud. You know what I mean? You pull that notebook out and go through your notes and figure out what time when, but they should be getting closer and closer, Luke. They should be getting closer and closer where we get enough piles of boats where you got 30 boats and you got 5 hooked up.
Yeah, and you can actually triangulate them. And what I've been doing is using Hilton's Real-Time Navigator, who's one of our sponsors of the show. You get logged in there and you start to hear reports. Like I've heard a lot of reports of, a couple miles off of, Wachapreague and then Chincoteague. And so then I'm looking at like the salinity and the sea surface temp and the chlorophyll shots, and you're seeing where these multiple points of data are kind of lining up that then make those areas of reports make sense. And so like the other day when we went out, was it Sunday this past week, we were seeing 54 to 56 degree water. And then now yesterday you went out and saw 51 to 53 degree water. And so I think combination of that, salinity, bait obviously is what we're looking at to start, seeing some more of these fish get caught here off of the coast of Virginia Beach. I'm curious, you get out there, you start looking at your machine. We were joking around the other day. We're like, well, what'd y'all do all day? We're like, we just watched tuna TV. It was the only channel we could get on the machine. You start imagining every speck you see as a tuna. Like, how do you determine or differentiate a tuna mark from, say, a channel bass, a striped bass or a pot of bait? Like, what's the real defining mark on the screen that makes you go, that's a tuna?
Now, look, man, when it comes to these bluefin tuna, I'll be the first to tell you that I fished for them probably 20 years, and I put in days and weeks and months and all these times fishing for these fish from Carolina to you name it. But there's better guys that have done way more. But I'll tell you I'll tell you the truth, man, is everybody's looked on Wicked Tuna. You see what they look like, and that's what it's like, because they're in the middle of nowhere with the blue screen marking these fish. And after you've seen that show and you've seen what they look like, you kind of want to see something like that on your screen. If you've looked at your screen long enough, you've never seen those marks. They're not around. They're not just regular bananas hanging out all the time. But a certain time of year, you'll see a school of bait, you'll see some birds, you'll see something that gives you that inkling that there could be some fish there, some life, they call it. And hopefully, there's a good mark on that screen to show you what you're looking at. You know what I mean? Hopefully there's a nice pack and you see that banana. Like, for example, yes, we saw that banana. You can use your depths. I mean, if you see a 15-foot long banana, it's not a fish, man. And it's definitely not. But if you can measure it by the depth on your stuff finder, look over to your numbers and you see it moving around that size, you measure it out, put it up to it's there's up to 4 to 6 foot, 7-foot fish out there, man.
All right. So I'm going to show you this. I'll post this when we post this episode. So here's a picture of my screen on Sunday. Would you say that is or is not a tuna mark?
Guys, I wouldn't say it is. I wouldn't say. Yeah, I wouldn't. I mean, you got bait moving up and down the column. You got some other stuff below it. Could be shrimp.
Uh-huh.
Got some other stuff could be chasing you. I mean, I don't know if you had birds diving or what you had in the area, but that doesn't, you just see that all the time. You feel good though when you see that. When you're fishing, you're like, yeah, we're fishing in marks. We're in bait.
Right.
You feel good about it. But what you want to see is I'll show you I'll send you some shots. A cigarette lighter on the bottom of the screen going by is pretty good. You see one of those, or you know what I mean, what looks like a flame.
Yeah.
Those look good. Those are pretty good, but mainly it's those big clusters of menhaden in the middle that you're looking for. You're looking for that nice cluster of menhaden right in the middle.
Okay.
And you see a ball, or then you see right behind it, you'll see the banana, or you'll see bananas.
Got it. That makes sense.
Those are gonna be the hogs, that you actually ran over and marked. You know what I mean? Because
more like this is what we're wanting to see when you just see a giant pile of menhaden on the screen.
That's better of it. And it looks like, what's that underneath it? It looks a little better too. Is that a glare?
Yeah, it was a glare underneath it, but I see what you're saying. Where if like you had that little flame or that little small banana that maybe makes up a 4 to 6 foot space underneath a ball of menhaden.
You saw my story yesterday. I don't know if I can get there in time and get a shot of it, but we went over one yesterday. There was it was a clear screen with just a banana hanging out, and I ran out back to film the poles, and I ran inside as one because the mark was there. When you see that mark, you want to run out back and see the bite.
Yeah,
if there's going to be one.
Yep,
I'd love to. So
that makes sense. And then, so ideal temperature for you, and you've been doing this for 20 years. Like, is there an ideal temperature where you're like feeling more confident that there should be bluefin in the area?
Yeah, if you run outside and your rods are covered in snow, it's ready to go. There's just no time, man. There's not. It's when they get here. It's when they start being caught. I mean, there's a certain time frame you can use that they've been here this time last year. They were here. It's warmer. It's warmer. It's, because they're still up north. Dave Marciano from up there, you know who that is.
Wicked tuna. Yeah.
Yeah, he's up there saying, man, December tuna, like he's still catching tuna in December, which is not, it's an abnormal, anomaly for him.
Got it.
Or whatever, anomaly. There we go. That's
right. Phenomenally. It's just such a cool thing to have off our coast. I mean, last year you got that giant 400 pounder. I mean, that's an absolute dream of a fish to come tight on. I got to experience it one time, being hooked up for 2.5 hours, and just to feel the sheer power of these animals is worth it. And like I would say to anybody listening that's considering booking a charter for tuna fishing, it's like you got to really like set your expectations. Like there's a high likelihood that you could ride around all day and not get a bite.
Yep, exactly. That's what I did yesterday, and that's what we did the day before. I mean,
right. But it's like you got to appreciate what could be if it happens and how special it would be, that it's like it's worth going to,
Yeah, that's exactly true. Here's the thing is we provide an opportunity to catch a fish. That's what we do. Now, look, you get an opportunity, and now most times, you used to have to go to Carolina. You might have to go down to North Carolina, and they were having a pretty good fishery for a while where you get your bluefin and then they'd sell it, or, you guys wouldn't get it, but you'd get to catch that fish or be a part of it.
Right.
And even help crank. Because once you get one on and you've done it enough, it's like, everybody can get a crank on it. Fine. You should say, bucket list speaking, I've done it. Some guys definitely want to, it's my turn. They want to battle that fish the whole way themselves.
Yep.
And you'll watch the guys in the pros on the show. They don't care who's reeling.
No.
They're like, let's get this sucker to the boat. Like, it's like, who wants to, a fancy shot of themselves killing their dinner? I mean, I do sometimes, but more than likely, I'd rather just hold my dinner.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But, it's a lot of fun. It's something to do. I'm not going to discourage it by any means, but to be there and to get any of that meat, if there's one under 73 inches, you got to go. You show up and you get a 200-pound fish with 6 people, you're going to get about 110 to 100 pounds of meat, about half the meat off the 200-pounder, and you've got 6 people. So you're going to get about 15 to 20 pounds of clean meat, which is, 40 a pound, 15 to 20. Everyone likes to do the math on it. It comes out to some money, some of your change back.
Yeah.
But in the scheme of things, how much is that? Let's see. You're going to get 10 pounds at 40 a pound. It's $400, and you only pay $300 to go. Anyway,
right. Per person. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it could work out in your advantage. You won the lottery. You got a fish. You get to get the meat, and you won your money back. But most times, you're never going to pay what you get for the experience. You get to go out there on the boat. You get to be with people you didn't meet, and you get to have a good time fishing at a time of year where there's sea bass to catch and there's those. So there's only a couple things to do, or talk.
Yeah, it's like a slot machine. Like you just got to like dial into the fact that like you're just enjoying, being there and having the chance of something to happen. But if not, whatever, you enjoyed your time. Just don't go blow your mortgage. So
well, we get a lot of regulars, and honestly, they hop on the boat, and you think I take it more personally than they do. I'm sure these other guys out in the other boats are feeling the same way when they go back and they don't have a fish. But yeah. I feel like we lost a playoff game in NFL. I'm like, man, we just lost. We're done. Yeah. We're out, bro. Like every time I come back, we don't catch fish, and they're happy. They'll be like, okay, bro, at least we had a chance. We saw them jumping. We had one we've had one hooked up or two a couple times.
Right. You'll see some whales. Like you're going to see some cool stuff happen. Like what you talked about, those birds diving was probably one of the coolest things that I saw last year, where all of a sudden it looked like an upside down machine gun of birds being fired down into the water, just doo, 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 doo. I was like, what in the world is going on? It's just like this bait frenzy. And then your adrenaline spikes, your heart rate goes up. You're like, I know there's fish here, and then you're just waiting and hoping for one to just go off.
Now I'm going to tell you a great story real quick while we got a second. I'll tell you what, back in 2012 and 2013, this is what everybody remembers, the heydays. When there was menhaden up and down the beach, we had striped bass within 3 miles.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody was catching their limits, coming in and out of the inlets for the last 5 to 10, 15, 20, as many years you can remember. Just point right or left. Do we go towards Carolina or Corolla, or do we go up towards the Cape? And they'd point one way because they were coming in at 9:30 a.m. because they already had theirs, and we were leaving to go out. And you'd always have, you know where to go and what you do. And the striper fishery, all the millions of dollars and just killer fishery we had, world class. And then the menhaden left. They got destroyed. I mean, just totally smoked. They oversmoked them again, and they stopped doing that migration to the south like they did.
Mm-hmm.
And before they did that, the highlight of this story was in 2012 and 2013, the bluefins crashed the beach. Oh. We had people catching bluefin, and I had striper gear getting zipped out and blown up. And I was getting bigger rods. And heck, I'll tell you a story real quick. We fought a bluefin hooked a mile off of Sandbridge Beach, maybe to 2 miles off Sandbridge Beach. And it took us 5 miles offshore. And we fought it for 3.5 hours on a TLD 25.
Oh, my gosh.
And look, by the time it was all said and done, I was sitting on the rod trying to get this fish to come up. because we couldn't budget. It was just a stalemate. It was just there.
Yep.
So man, we popped him off. So
Ah,
but you just be saying we caught another one. We caught a couple more around that time, and we ended up eating those and sharing them with our friends. But those are the 150 to 100, and it was great because everybody was coming in with their fish, their bluefin. It was small boats, every boat, and was inshore. It was one of the greatest things, man.
that's incredible.
It really got everybody hooked when you had something that big spool you out that hard with your small gear.
Yeah, and you're a mile offshore like that. I've got a boat neighbor named Frank that told me the same kind of story. I think it was 2012, where he was out there fishing by the Cape, trolling stretch 25s for a striper, and then nailed this like 180-pound bluefin tuna. And he said the only reason he thinks he was able to catch it was because he was in like 30 foot of water. So he's like,
Couldn't go down.
we just kept up with it and eventually tired it out. But going into these next couple of weeks, like what are the actual, I just want to understand like the regulations, the season, the expectation. So for those that are thinking about a bluefin trip to just kind of make sure they get, their heads are wrapped around this correctly, like how long does this typically last? And like what is our window of opportunity? And then what is the realistic chance that we catch one under 73 inches if we're out there?
All right, that's a great question. All right, so they're okay up north. I'll give you a little quick. Up north, they're able to catch the mediums and the largest, and the overs they have to let go if they're a charter, but unless they have the commercial permit or the extra permitting for their boat, then they can keep an over because it's not closed yet. As you saw with Chasing Tails down south, they just killed a 600-pounder on a skiff. So that being said, in our area for now, odds, I hate to tell you, I'm a math major, but I am. I used to love some numbers, and I still do, that the percentages are, and how many were caught per day from last season, and I can almost tell you each one and how many the odds are going to increase. So here, give a quick example. The first few weeks, there was like 1 or 2 caught, 3 caught here and there. It was maybe 5 caught per day on the good days. You get longer days, you get more fish caught. You have slower days like yesterday, you get 1 fish caught out of the group approach. Maybe there's another one hooked, but that was all we heard of and know of. A couple times before that was maybe 2 or 3 caught, and then as the season goes by, you're going to get the numbers are going to increase. Now these ones that are being caught, I had a buddy, my buddy James, caught 2 that he had to release. Because when you don't have that permitting, you got to let over the overs. Now, when it keeps killing the overs, they opened it back up in January last year because they can close it and open it and closing it open like a door, door. They could that door you walk in and it keeps going around and around.
Yeah,
that's the one, buddy. Because they can, by the time you get all your gear and spend all your money to go commercial fishing, they shut it down. If you're going to try that, I mean, we were putting all that stuff on our boat for last year to maybe give it a go. But yeah, but the odds and the chances of catching a less than 73 are very good.
Okay.
Because those fish are there. They, not all fish are giants. And then once the giants do move through, you get to release a giant. No one, honestly, it's true to say that if you didn't get to keep your giant, which of course you're upset you didn't, no one's really that upset to see that and fight that or be a part of that. I mean,
oh, it's magic.
But man, when you lay down one there next to them and man, or you pull one in the boat or even see it, I guess. It's just yeah, like you said, it's just a lifetime experience. And for a fisherman, try to catch a big fish, that's a big fish.
It's as big as it gets, almost. Like
big fish.
Aside from a giant blue marlin, I can't really think of many other game fish that you can actually like keep and eat besides one of these giant bluefin tunas. And I can remember from last year being attached to one of these things for 2.5 hours, feeling the sheer mass of this animal moving through the water where you're just 100% at its mercy and it's everything you can do to just hold on to it and keep up with it. And then you realize that weight you're feeling pulling you forward is just simply its head moving back and forth 6 inches as it swims through the water. And then you're just like humbled by the utter power of this animal.
Yeah, ours circled the boat last year, our monster. It circled the boat. It was up on the top. It was beautiful. We saw it was finning. We had him finning. It was crazy. It was, you just like that. You live for those moments. And, the hard thing is you put in enough days that it happens. You're going to go out there and fish. And then hopefully the fishing. I know one thing. We get some more bait, which I keep mentioning. If you get some more bait, we get more, something there for them to eat.
They'll come hang out.
Yeah, man. We'll have them hanging out longer and getting them a little thicker because I think that fishery is actually, is improving every year. It gets better and better for us. And maybe it is because of the revolving door they're using.
Yep.
The chance to kill a giant's cool, man. Hey, what's a cool point is you never see a 900 or 800 or 700 pounder sit in the sushi table in Japan for $300,000. It's always like a medium.
Mm-hmm.
A medium or a large, like
the absolute like butter ball with
the under 73.
Yep.
Is the bazillion-dollar fish. You know what I mean? And
Mm-hmm.
we had a 88 or I don't know, a 90-inch fish last year, and we ate it. We didn't we didn't sell a drop of it. She ate every last scrap of that thing, man. So, I mean, we could have ate a $100,000 fish. You never know. I mean,
Depending on who the buyer is, but I will tell you too, I got a piece of that Toro last year from somebody, and I mean, just like wiping your finger across it was like this glaze of like this buttery glaze of fat coming off of it, and then you put that in a hand roll with some cucumber and avocado and some sticky rice on a little piece of seaweed paper. Oh my gosh, dude, it was divine.
you're the one who made me flame broil it last year at a gathering. We had a party, and I had
Yep.
had the bluefin out, and you made me get this food torch. I put it all across the sushi. And the torch was like, and I smoked them. I think I did it too long or something else. I did.
We'll have to do it a little bit different this year when we get one. Hopefully, prayerfully.
No, I'm not doing it again. You're doing it this time. You got it.
Yeah, we'll do a big sushi party together. I want to say this too because I got a good friend with Cavu Offshore with his boat Bullet One. It's this really badass marlin, and he's just outfitted it for bluefin tuna fishing. So I've gotten a firsthand experience watching him and my good buddy Austin McDonald with McDonald Marine building out outriggers, swivel rod holders, rigging the outriggers with all of the line and the clips and everything, and then buying the rods, getting the bent butts, spooling the hollow core, spooling the mono, buying the big 80 wides. Like there's so much of a huge investment that goes into this that I just want to say, like, my hat's off to you and every other charter captain out there offering this as an opportunity. Like, yeah, chartering a boat is an investment to go out and do it. It's not cheap to go, pay for a charter, but considering what you guys have invested to be ready to go out there and do it, it hardly holds a candle to the investment to get in because I know what it costs just to do it on this one boat. And good Lord, it's a lot of money. I mean, we're talking like $30,000-$40,000 in equipment to have outriggers and a fully equipped setup to go out there and do it.
Yeah, the curtains really help too. You got the Mike's Marines
Yep.
canvas curtains all the way around the boat. Those really help for the crew because it's sometimes you can leave the three sides down, and you've got six people comfortably sitting watching the rods with aiming backwards like they're on a school bus with the seats backwards. So they have a good time watching the rods and waiting for bites and seeing the birds. And when we get hooked up, it's a blast. You get people in between there switching off and reeling away on the fish and getting in the boats an adventure too. Because you got all this equipment you could use, but you also have adrenaline.
Oh yeah, and you got to manage that stuff.
You also have a lot of manpower on the boat that are ready to use that adrenaline. All you put is put a couple gaffs and two guys' hands through it. We're all yoking that thing in no time before you know it. It's in the boat.
Yep. And speaking of, we just ordered two of these Aftco gaps, the carbon fiber ones with the special grip handles. And man, these things are so lightweight but so strong. I'm excited to hopefully get to bury one of these things in one of these tunas this year. So it's going to be a blast. Folks that are listening that are like, man, I got to get out there. I got to have this opportunity. Playing hooky is one of the best ones to go out there on, just, having fun. It's going to be entertaining. You know what you're doing. It's going to be a comfortable, dry, hopefully warm ride behind those curtains. What's the best way for them to contact you and get booked on playing hooky to go after one of these giants?
Yeah, they can call me at 757-619-3530. They can also hit the website. It's the best way. You can book a trip right there on the site, put a deposit down. The trips right now are running at $1,500 for pretty much all of us are doing it. It ends up being around $300 each. Mm-hmm. Including the tip per person. And then it gives you 8 hours out there on the water. We go early in the morning. We like to get out there 6 and get the first light around 7 and then start trolling around. And the other way is you can contact us on Facebook. And let's see, the Facebook, the Instagram, they're all playing hooky charters. At Instagram's got the underscore there. And as a real quick, put a plug out. We still have that 25-foot Seahawk. We're selling still, and we're just putting it back on the market because we were thinking about keeping it, and we decided we're going to pass up on it for now and maybe even go bigger again if we do.
Ooh.
So it's still out there, guys. 25 Seahawk wrapped up.
That's a great boat, man. I mean, a Seahawk 25-foot, it can do everything you want to do, from fish in the inlet, go to the sandbar, cruise up to Chicks and grab some orange crushes, or go out on the bay, or even scoot off to the wrecks. Like that boat can literally do it all. It's got the curtains. It's ready to rock. It's a proven fish killing machine. So if you guys are interested in that, definitely check that boat out. It's going to be on the Facebook. And of course, it's got some memories, man. Like, who wouldn't want to own a piece of history? The playing hooky.
If you're the right person, you're the right fisherman, it's going to come with some rec numbers. These aren't rec numbers that you have to wonder if they're there. They're going to be confirmed rec numbers with stories and fish to tell you where to go and what to do. I can help you out a little bit. That boat, like he said, does have a little bit of love and some memories to it. It's listed right now at Oyster Cove with Brad Herndon, and he's going to be making another post here soon.
Oh, y'all give it up for Captain Brad Herndon. That guy can help you out with getting a boat. That man knows what he's doing. He's helped us as well several times. And Oyster Cove is always a great resource for any sort of repower, maintenance, service parts, warranty work. I've experienced it myself. They're fantastic folks over there, led by Chris Lee up in the Gloucester location. I'm going to do a terrible job of it, but he's always like, "Come on down to 1549 George Washington Highway, just north of that George P. Coleman Bridge, or south of the
Coleman Bridge, baby."
Chris, if you're listening, we love you. That's why we're joking it.
Chris actually was the one who helped me put this boat together. He was the first place I stopped at to get the Seahawks. We got the boat from him, and then we went out and got the motors from Troy, and we got the tower from S&S, and the rest is history. Mike's Marine and everybody else. But yeah,
You got the starting lineup there of best of the breed for boat building, curtains, and everything in between.
you want to be the best, you got to go to the best, and have the best guy working with you.
Absolutely.
Bro, shout out.
Yeah, man. Well, Captain Bill, thank you so much for being on the show, dude. It's always a pleasure.
All right, buddy. I appreciate your time, man. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, likewise. Guys, stick around for a word from our sponsors who are making this great content free for you each week. The chance to get to hear from Captain Bill, Wild Captain Bill. Stick around for that word. We'll be right back with you soon for another report. Hilton's Offshore Charts. The days of heading out and blindly looking for good fishing areas are pretty much over. Don't waste time and money on fuel searching for fish. You need the most recent, highest resolution images to not only know where to go, but where not to go. The knowledge provided by today's technology is critical when planning an offshore fishing trip. So make the choice that professional captains all over the East Coast make and choose Hilton's Real-Time Navigator. The easy-to-use interface and excellent customer service will have you on the fish every time you go. Check them out at hiltonsoffshore.com. That's hiltonsoffshore.com. All right, guys. Well, we're going to jump into a little bit of a nearshore report to find out what's going on in the Bay. I'd like to welcome back to the show Captain Robbie Bryan with Real Release. How we doing, Cap?
Pretty good. How are you guys doing?
Good, man. It's cold. Goodness gracious. I feel like it's
freezing.
Yeah, it happened way too fast. People put up their Christmas lights and then boom, it was frigid cold. But yeah, man, what have you guys been up to lately with, the weather changing so fast? What have you guys been able to get out in there and do?
So the beginning of this month, we had some sea bass. We went sea bass fishing. That's still good. And that's going to stay good all the way through December. But then we started targeting togs and everything around the bridge tunnel and, nearshore wrecks and stuff like that. And that was really, really good. I mean, it was almost as fast as you could drop a bait down, you were getting a bite when they were biting. I mean, it was just boom, one after another after another. Like I always say, if you can go out there and, catch a limit of togs with a charter that's never done before, then it's like phenomenal, tog fishing for people that know, how to do it. Cause it's such a specific bite that you've got to learn and try to capitalize on. They're very, very tricky fish to catch, especially if you've never done it before.
Yeah. And, I've barely ever tried tog fishing and you're right. The few times I've tried, it's been very difficult. Like it's a very unique bite. And, talk us through why is that bite so unique as opposed to any other fish, like a sea bass or, any other, wreck style fish?
Yeah. So, I'll kind of give you the gist of what I tell my group every morning when we head out. So togs, they've got the big lips, big mouth and this teeth. So they always you watch the videos, like John Skinner's videos and stuff like that, especially of the underwater footage of the togs. They're very curious creatures. So when you drop it down, they could be there, but it's going to give them, you got to give them a minute for them to investigate your bait and everything. Mm-hmm. And then usually it'll be one or two fish will come up and try to, take a bite out of it. But mostly what they do with those lips, they'll come up and they'll grab that bait and they'll end up almost sucking on, the crab that you got down there because their lips are so big. They're not trying to engulf the entire crab. They're kind of just taking a little bit at a time. And that's why a lot of people, they'll notice you're all the meat and everything, they'll pretty much eat all the meat off the shell of the crab, and you come up with a hook and it's just the shell of the crab because that's all they want. And so I always tell everybody, freshen up your bait on every drop, make sure it's a super big chunk of bait and make sure you got to make sure that hook is going right through the middle of that meat. You want it right in the middle of that and kind of bury it a little bit, kind of hide it.
Okay.
So they don't eat around it.
Got it.
But I always tell everybody on the way, when we go tog fishing, I say when you drop it down, you want to hold it tight. You don't want to bounce it. You don't want to move it around a lot. You just want to drop it down, let it sit there, give it 5 minutes. If you don't get a bite, then pick it up, move it around. And if you feel a soft spot, or sand, then move it from that spot and move it till you hit something hard. You'll feel like a rock, or like a rock that drops off into a mud spot, and that's a good spot. And you want to let it sit there. And then you're going to get one bite. And I tell everybody that's your bite to wake up. He's trying to tell you, wake up, I'm here. So as soon as you get that one bite, get ready, because it's going to come back, and they always do it in threes. It'll be one bite. A couple of seconds later, it'll be dunk, dunk, dunk. And that's when you can set the hook on them. And that's usually that's the best way that I found out on how to catch them.
That's interesting.
It's just to get that one initial bite and to wake up.
Okay, and get ready, and then that third thunk is when you can swing.
Yes.
Okay.
You always see like people, they start swinging on the first one, and that's just them checking it out. That's just them looking at it. They'll take like a little swipe at it. They'll get a taste, and then they'll come back and be like, "Man, that was pretty good." Then they'll come back, and that's usually when they'll do 1, 2, 3.
Okay.
And that's usually when they've got it in their mouth pretty good.
That sounds like me at the Golden Corral, that first swipe at the salad bar and then go back for, the steak, the ribs. No, I'm just kidding. But the togs, they've got these huge lips. It almost looks like they've gotten fillers. And then they've also got these very interesting teeth that they almost look kind of like human-like. How much does that play a factor into like getting a good hook set? Like, do you ever find times where like you feel like you got a good hook set, but then it ended up that you were just like up against a tooth or something like that? Or is it almost always that you get them in that lip?
I'll say 90% of the fish that we hook are in the lips, and you'll see it like it'll be barely in the lips. A lot of the fish, you'll have it to where you set the hook on them, and then you get like, 3 or 4 cranks on it. You're fighting the fish, and it comes off.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to hook them in those lips 90% of the time. Very rarely I've had it to where like, they engulf the entire thing.
Okay.
It's mostly like barely hooked, like just hanging on by, a little bit of their skin on the lips. That's why you got to have you can't have like super tight drag, because a lot of times that's when you'll end up pulling them off. You got to have a little bit of give so it doesn't rip that skin out.
Got it. So they're more nibble eaters as opposed to other fish that like a sea bass, for example, that it tends to like inhale a bait.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
They're going to go and just kind of pick it apart, because you got to think that's kind of what they do in real life for a crab. They're going to come up and they're going to hit that crab on that first punch, and kind of like knock it out or, disable it for a little bit. Then they're going to swing back around and take another boom, boom, take little chunks out of it at a time.
Mm-hmm.
I think they don't really have like the biggest mouth, versus like a sea bass, that could eat like a 7-inch spot,
Right.
They've got like, about a 2-inch mouth. They're just going to go and take little hits out of it. That's why a lot of the times, like I'll try to cut the legs off the crabs, and just kind of make like a bite size, like a little chicken nugget size piece of crab for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Not too dissimilar from like a sheep's head, for example. Like they got those big rows of teeth and they're consuming it little bites at a time. So to your point, I'm imagining that first hit and then that thump, thump, thump. And so that second or third thump is going to be when they're actually maybe taking a little bit larger bite, where that hook point that you've got in the bait is actually going to be within the proximity of their mouth, where you can actually swing and catch some meat on the way up.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all like the key is going to be like hook placement in your baits and, waiting for that big bite. That's why I always say wait for the big bite. Because like a lot of the times, like this time of year, there's a lot of sea bass and everything down there. I tell the people, don't swing. Like, if you feel like little tap, 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 there's a big difference. The togs will be like a thud, it'll be like boom, like a bigger thud. You almost feel like your weight gets lifted up, like your sheep's head fishing, you'll feel like the weight gets moved or something like that.
Yeah.
And that's usually when you're going to want to swing on it, is going to be on those bigger bites. And a lot of the times I tell people, like, if you swing for it and you get it and you miss it, just drop it right back down there, because they're super curious fish. They'll come right back to it. They don't get spooked, on that. They'll come right back and they'll try to hit it again. Okay.
Yeah. So they're definitely just keyed up and hungry and not like super spooky. And then when you're talking about swinging, I'm initially like, I'm thinking, okay, well, what kind of hook do I have? What kind of leader? What kind of main line? And what kind of rod and reel? Do you use something unique for tog, or do you use similar gear like to sea bass?
No. So like I make dropper rigs, just with 50-pound mono, probably 3 to 4 foot leader is what I end up using. Like almost like I'll do like an arm's length of like 50-pound, and then I'll do my dropper rig and connect it from there. So you're probably left with a 3-foot rig, overall. after
Okay.
it's all said and done, after you do your loops and everything.
Mm-hmm.
That's just for, abrasion resistance against those rocks, the pilings, anything like that, so you don't break off and chafe as much. And then depending on like the size of the crab that you're using and stuff, that matters on your hook. So like if you've got like, I know Ocean's East, they're selling like whole green crabs, like the frozen ones now. So like if you want to use like a whole crab, that's a little bit bigger, than I would go for like a 5/0 hook,
Mm-hmm.
And then if you're using like chunks of blue crab, sometimes you'll get the smaller blue crabs or the medium sized ones. And that would be like anywhere from a 3/0 to like a 4/0 hook. Same thing for like fiddler crabs. You're going to want to use like a 3/0 hook, just something smaller so it doesn't crush that crab.
And on that dropper loop rig that you're talking about, are you tying 1, 2, 3 hooks? Like, what's your typical dropper loop rig look like
No,
once it's
just
tied up?
one single.
Okay.
One single hook. So essentially I do like what you're going to do for like a dropper loop to attach what I do is a dropper loop to like attach like a weight, and I'll make like a 6-inch dropper loop on that. And then I'll have a 6-inch tag in, and I'll tie the hook to the tag in of essentially what the dropper loop would be.
Okay. Got it.
You want your hook right next to your weight.
Got it. Okay. That's what I was going to be curious about, is like, you want the weight to be feeling the bottom. That's kind of okay, am I on muddy? Am I on a rock? Am I on a wreck? But then you want your bait to basically be an inch or two above that.
Yeah. Your bait's going to be with there being current and everything. Essentially, your hook is going to be like 6 inches off, the bottom where you want it, and you don't want to do a long, tagging. You don't want like a foot, tagging on that. Like 6 inches to 4 inches. You want it right there, nice and tight, so it's not moving around a lot. It's just staying in that one spot.
Got it.
You'll be able to get a lot more bites and land a lot more fish like that.
Okay, very cool. And then going up to the main line, are we braid, mono?
Yeah, braid for sure, for sensitivity to be able to feel the difference in the bottom. Mono, it's hard. You'll have to use a lot heavier weights. I mean, last week we were using 8 to 10 ounces to hit bottom just because with that full moon
And the current,
the tide was smoking. Yeah. So if you use mono, you're gonna have to use a lot thicker line to get down there. I'm usually using like 40 to 50 pound braid, whatever's on my rigs and everything like that. Like if we go, for like a tall jig, I'll switch over to like a spinning rod, and those are the same ones I use for like flounder fishing. It'll be 30 pound braid, and then my sea bass rods, I use those for the bottom fishing, and that'll be like 50 pound braid on those.
Okay. And that 30 and 50 pound braid is like you're going to be able to cut that water a little bit better. So it's not going to be as affected by the current as, like a 40 or 50 pound mono would be.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's why like when the current starts dying off, I love using jigs. 10 times more fun, light action, and you're able to feel the bite a little bit better because you can drop it down to like a 1 ounce or a 2 ounce jig.
Okay. Got it. And what are the regulations for Tall Tog right now?
The regulations, I believe, it's 16 inches 4 per person.
Okay. Got it. Copy that. And those can get pretty big. I mean, what size togs are you seeing coming up these days?
The other day, it's like a really, really good class of fish that we've got in the bay right now. I know the other day I had a couple from New York that's never done it before, and we caught 26 togs, I think, in a 4-hour trip with just 2 people that have never done it before, which is pretty good.
Oh, wow.
But like the average size of those fish the average size that we've been catching are like the 16 to 22 inches.
Okay.
So 22-inch togs are pretty good size. It's like a 5-pounder,
Mm-hmm.
5 to 6 pound fish, in the bay, which is a pretty good quality. Like years past, we've had a lot of 14s and a lot of 15s, and now I guess all those fish have finally grown up. We've had a few that were still like 14s and 15-inch fish, but the majority of them are going to be the 16s, the 20-inch fish.
Okay, got it. Very cool. And from what I hear, tog are pretty tasty to eat. What's your opinion on them? And if so, do you ever cook them up yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really eat fish, but my wife, she loves it. I mean, they call them poor man's lobster because you got to think they're eating crabs, mussels, any type of crustacean that's down there. So they're just essentially they are what they eat. They're going to be super sweet. It's super sweet, light, and super white meat. I know the other day when I was cleaning all those fish, a lot of them were actually full of sea urchins. So they were eating a bunch of those down there.
Oh, that's interesting. Poor man's lobster. I've never heard that one before, but that is pretty cool. And I imagine if it's a sweeter fish like that, it'd probably be good in like a chowder, or even if you were just gonna, bake it or grill it, or maybe mix it up with
Yeah,
some other, like a risotto dish that's, got a nice, salty base to it, and then you put that sweet fish on top.
yeah. Apparently I get told that I have the taste buds of a 10-year-old kid. So I like, if I'm going to eat fish, I like it with, instead of like, the panko, that crunch, when you fry them, I actually get a bag of Frosted Flakes and I smash that up. And then you put salt on it too. Then you get that sweet and salty, taste with this fish. And it's really good.
That does sound really good. And we're going to actually take a break here in a minute and come back and talk about striped bass. But for those that are tuning in now and they're hearing you talk about these delicious togs and the excitement of waiting them out for that thump. If folks want to get booked with Real Release, what's the best way for them to contact you and get booked for a tog trip?
Yeah, the best way is check us out on Facebook or Instagram at Real Release Sport Fishing, and check us out on our website. Send us an email. My phone number's on there too. That's also a really good way to get in touch with me. But yeah, shoot me a message and we'll get some dates lined up and get you guys out there.
Awesome. Fantastic. And it's on that big, beautiful 30-foot privateer with the cabin, so you'll stay warm on the way out and on the way back in.
Yeah, I just got my buddy heater hooked up, ready to roll now, getting ready for rockfish.
Well, on that note, we're going to take a quick break and hear a word from this week's sponsors, and we'll be right back to talk striped bass fishing with Captain Robbie. It's time we talked about catching some serious savings. Imagine harnessing the power of the sun to cut your energy bills and having a roof that's built to last. Convert Solar and Roofing specializes in top-notch solar installations and durable roofing solutions that stand up to the toughest elements. Their solar panels are designed to maximize efficiency, and their roofs are built with premium materials to ensure long-lasting protection. Whether you're out on the water or at home, their expert team ensures you're covered. As fellow anglers in the Lower Chesapeake Bay, the team at Convert Solar and Roofing cares about both sustainable living and sustainable fishing. So reel in those savings today and visit www.convert-solar.com or call 757-44-SOLAR. Make your energy and roof as reliable as your favorite fishing lure. Call Convert Solar and Roofing today. Pure Flat slick lures are tried, true, and guide approved. Slick lures catch big speckled trout, redfish, flounder, and more. You can cast them a mile, and they produce a highly erratic bait fish imitation with a twitching retrieve. The tournament-winning slick has helped many anglers set personal best records. Whether you're fishing the OG slick, the smaller profile slick junior, or the versatile lil slick, one is sure to find that unforgettable thump we're all after. Visit your local tackle retailer or pureflats.com for your favorite color and rigging combination. Go sling some slicks today. You can't catch them on the sofa. So welcome back, guys. We're going to talk about the rockfish because it's obviously one of the most sought after fish in the bay. So getting, top down kind of understanding how they migrate and move, like what are some of the first things that you're looking for before planning a rockfish trip? What are some of those indications that are going to make you go, okay, yeah, now's a good time to go start looking?
It's mostly going to be the time of year.
Okay.
For me, I know a lot of people just because all the rock fishing that we have is on like the eastern shore, and kind of up the bay, now that, with everything being how it is now, we don't get that big push around, the bridge tunnel, and then they move up the bay anymore. We just kind of get, those big trophy breeders and everything that move up. That's why I try to like schedule my trips between I'll move my boat over to Cape Charles starting like the 15th of December, and then I'll keep it there all the way through like mid-January. Usually they're going to start catching them right now. It's usually like right after Thanksgiving, people start rock fishing, that live over there, and they'll start catching them because, they have a short run. And that's like the only thing to do up there this time of year. But usually I've always seen like December 18th through January 15th. That's like your prime time to catch a rockfish. And it's not like most fish where it's like, oh, they show up and then they're gone. Once when they show up, they're going to be here until it's going to like freeze. You know what I mean? Like they're going to be there and they're there every single day until it gets way, way, way too cold. And then you don't want to be out there anyways that time of year.
You're right. It gets like bone chilling cold where you're
freezing.
just uncomfortable.
Yeah.
not too unlike what most of these bluefin tuna fishermen are experiencing the past couple of days. But these striped bass, I mean, these are the big ones, the big trophy ones that you're going after, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Every now and then we'll catch, some short ones and everything, trolling.
Hmm.
But for the majority of the time, like if you want to catch like trophy, those big citation fish, the breeders and everything like that, that's going to be on the eastern shore of Virginia in the
Okay.
bay. And then on the west side, like Gloucester, the Reedsville, that's all going to be your schoolies and your keeper fish, like, coming out of the rivers and everything like that.
That's interesting. So those larger fish are hanging out on the eastern side of the bay, and then those schoolie size on the western side, and you attribute that to the rivers, like where they're being, spawned out of and growing up out of, and then they're all of a sudden migrating out to the bay, and that's where you're seeing them.
Yeah. So like, all these fish are coming out of Maryland, they're coming out of the York River, Potomac, all the rivers up there on the west side of the bay. And then they shove down, and then that's usually where they run into like schools in Menhaden and stuff. And then they start feeding on those, the bait balls. And that's just like the concentration of like those size fish.
Hmm.
The fish that we're getting on the eastern side is they're coming in through the ocean, and they're coming in to go spawn inside those rivers. So they're hugging that eastern shore. They're following the contour lines up to Maryland to shoot across into the rivers and everything like that to go spawn.
Okay.
And then like later in the year, we will catch, keeper size fish. They'll be around in the cut channel, like buoy 48, in the cut channel right there. It's kind of like middle bay area. And that's
Hmm.
usually when the water starts, cooling off a little bit. It'll shove those, keeper fish, start moving towards the ocean and start moving out.
Hmm. It's interesting looking at the regulations and trying to make sure that we understand them correctly. So I want to make sure that our listeners, hear this and understand it correctly too. So there's a couple of key things this year. One is that it's got to be a non-offset, corrodable, non-stainless steel circle hook when fishing with any sort of live bait or chunk. And just, I think it's pretty obvious, but that's just basically to make sure that we're not unintentionally killing fish, right?
Yeah. It's a rule that they came up with to kind of stop everybody from, I guess, gut hooking the fish,
Okay.
or hooking them in their gills, just to have a chance of them to be able to live. I guess 90% of the time though, like when we were using J hooks and everything back in the day, you really don't ever hook a fish down, because you're trolling, you know what I mean? So it's not like they're like sitting there inhaling the entire bait. So,
That
I
makes
mean,
sense.
I guess it does help if you would be like floating, still, it would probably help out drastically. The main thing was like the guys up the bay that live bait for the rockfish, they're pulling up the structure. They're, dropping live baits down and like drifting away. You know what I mean? So they
Yeah.
were having a lot of issues and stuff, I guess, with that. And
Okay.
that's kind of how they just did this to cover everything. But yeah, I think like the slot size now is only like 19 to 24 inches, one per person.
Okay, got it. That makes sense. And then I remember when we were up at the VMRC meeting, you and Chris Ludford were talking about a really interesting phenomenon that I would have never understood or thought would impact, the striped bass spawning and growth. Regarding snow melt, can you talk us through like how that interaction works?
Yeah, that's what Chris is saying. It's been a while since we've had like a good snow melt. And that, it's just more freshwater water flow that helps, the rockfish eggs survive. They're going up to the rivers and everything like that. And Captain Lee runs Fin Finder out of Maryland. I was talking to him about it, and he said that it's really main thing that's causing a lot of harm and everything to the fishery is going to be those dams and everything that they put in place into those rivers, because it's just regulating the water flow that was never regulated before.
Mm.
So you got to think that's got to have a huge impact on that. So yeah, when you would get a snow melt, then it really wouldn't matter, because even if the dams are there, it's still going to, run off from all the land and everything like that of that snow coming down into those rivers, adding fresh water, adding a little bit more water flow and, current to it.
Hmm.
With that, it's just that's going to be the main thing that rockfish need: current. They need fresh water. They need good oxygen flow rolling through there to have those eggs survive the spawn.
That's interesting. Yeah, it's cool to just kind of learn about how all these different environmental factors come together to, make the fish healthy so that they can grow and be populous, hopefully. When you're targeting them, let's just focus for a second on the big ones, like up on that eastern side of the bay. You mentioned some trolling. Like, what's the typical setup when you're trolling for big striped bass, and is there like a target speed that you should be at?
Yeah, your target speed's going to be like, I've seen some people do it with like trolling motors and everything, anywhere from like 1.5 knots to really like 2.5, 3. I've caught them at 3 knots too.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say that 1.5 to 3 knots. It sounds super, super slow, but you just want to be able to go slow so that your live baits can swim. You know what I mean? You want enough speed to get your planers to spread out, but then you don't want to go too fast to where you're pulling the eels. You really want those eels to be able to sit there and be able to swim and move around and look, like a live bait versus just trolling because if you're trolling those eels too fast, they're going to sit there and spin. Versus
Okay.
like if you're going slow enough, they're able to actually swim around and like move. You know what I mean?
Got it. Got it. Man, you mentioned eels, and it takes me back to cobia season. And it's like some days you'll do anything to avoid touching an eel, and you get back into rockfish season, you got to start messing with eels again. Is that kind of the bait of choice, or are there other options?
Yeah, that's really the only bait that we have available. I know up in Maryland and stuff like that, a lot of those guys, they'll catch like a ton of spot, like 1,000 spot, and they'll pin them up for the winter time, and they'll use those. But down here, the majority of us are all using eels. That's pretty much all you got. Seen some people, like especially for like the schoolies and the keepers, you can use like the old parachute rigs or tandem rigs,
Mm-hmm.
4 or 5 inch storms on 3-ways, stuff like that. But yeah, the majority of us that are going for the trophies, we're pulling the eels, and I'll be fishing. Usually we'll fish like 12 to 16 rods.
Oh, wow.
And that's just kind of depending on the weather and everything, how many we can fish during that time frame. But we at least try to shoot for 12 to 14. It's going to be on a normal day.
That's a lot. That's a huge spread. I mean, how do you manage that? And is that 12 eels out there?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Holy smokes. I mean, that's an insane spread. I'm looking at some of your pictures where you've got those three-way rocket launchers down in each individual rod holder. I see eels all over the deck. I mean, that's insane. I mean, how difficult is that to manage? I'm assuming you got to have a mate to help make all that to manage all that chaos.
Yeah, that's what we usually try to do is like if you're going that slow, it's easy, to kind of point the boat in one direction and it'll stay in that one. So normally, like on my boat, I'll tell my mate I'll get the left side because that's closer to the driving steering
Hmm.
wheel, and if I got to run up there and make a change real quick, then I can, and then
Hmm.
he'll usually get the right side. Because I mean, you got to think he's in charge of 7 rods putting out because you got to evenly space them, make sure they don't get tangled up, and then I'll put out the 7 on my side, and then we'll usually run, 1 or 2 down the middle, sometimes 3.
Wow, that's pretty awesome. And you've got some dates coming up, starting around the 17th, for full day rock fishing for the trophies. Are you going to be doing any walk on opportunities?
Yeah, I'm going to try to do some walk-ons. I got a couple guys that are interested in doing those right now, but the majority of them, right now, I actually booked, I think, 7 or 8 this week already.
Oh, wow.
So I got a couple of those. I did like a big post where I had like 25 dates or something like that, and I think I've only got like 10 left now after
Okay.
that. A lot of them got booked, filled up pretty quick. But yeah, I mean that any time frame in there would be the best, and definitely always say like check us out on Facebook. We'll post like walk on dates if we have days that haven't been booked up yet, and usually I'll have like a notebook of people that want to do the walk-ons, and then I'll send like a group message or something like that to try to get everyone lined up to see who can go that day.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, that's definitely, if you want to catch a citation, that is the time to catch your trophy fish.
And what qualifies as a citation? Is it a certain length?
It's 44 inches.
44 inches. Okay, so that's going to be a big striped bass. I mean, I'm looking at some of your pictures, and some of these things are huge. I mean, I'm just curious, like you've been doing this for a long time. What would you say is like one of the larger striped bass that you've seen caught here in Virginia waters?
Yeah, well, we caught The biggest one we caught last year was 54 inches, which was
that's a tank.
that's a giant. It's a absolute tank of a fish. And we try to tell everybody, like, there's, it's the majority of the fish that we're catching are all 45 to 48 inches, 49 inches. And then like anything over 50 inches, like that used to be like a very like prestige thing. It's like catching a cobia over 60 inches. It's like, hey, you're in the 50-inch club. That used to be like the thing that everybody would say, you're in the 50-inch club. Because usually like once when they get in that size, those fish are going to be about, a pound per inch. So you're thinking those rockfish could be 50 pounds to 55 pounds, which is a huge rockfish.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, and obviously they're, not keepable, or you can't harvest them at that size anymore anyways. But back when you could, I want to say it was 2016 that we could still keep trophy rockfish. Cause I remember that was the last time that I fished for them.
2018 was the last year we could keep them.
Okay, that sounds right.
That's when I bought the look. I bought that lookout that time. That's when we would still go out there and be able to keep them on that.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I just remember having knee surgery, and then 6 days after knee surgery, my buddy Brad Herndon from Oyster Cove says, "Hey man, you want to go catch a rockfish?" And I'm like, "I don't think I'm supposed to. Let's do it." so we went out there and we didn't have the lines in the water, but a few minutes, and then bang, threw a rod through the side of his motor, and we were down. And so we were super disappointed. We'd gotten up, at 4 o'clock in the morning and driven over to the Eastern Shore, and we're on our way back. And his buddy Zach Duke, who's got this great Southport, calls. He goes, "Hey, you guys getting any bites?" And he goes, "No, man, we're on our way home." And he goes, "Well, it sounds like," and we told him why. He goes, "Sounds like you guys have all the rigging ready to go, and I've got a working boat." So we actually ran back across the bridge, dumped his boat, ran up to Little Creek, got on the Southport, buzzed all the way across the bay, got the lines out, and within like 10 minutes of having the lines out, we caught looking it up now, it was a 49.5-inch striper, and she weighed exactly 41 pounds. And then, we were like, hey, we made it happen. We got some rockfish to eat. So that was a good memory.
Yeah. Yeah. I wish that it would make a comeback to like what it used to be. Definitely we saw a huge increase in the fish from last year. I mean, some of the best fishing I've seen was last year. I mean, some days we had like 20 bites and, 16 of them landed by noon.
Oh, wow.
That's a lot going on when you got all that going on. I mean, I think our best day, we had like 24, 28 rockfish that we landed by like 1 or 2 o'clock.
Holy cow. Yeah, that is good fishing.
That was like the best that we've seen. Like years prior, we would catch, 6 to 8 rockfish a day, stuff like that. It would, bite every hour. That's what we'd always try to tell people. Like, it's because sometimes it'll be slow. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, like the last 2 years, we've seen a huge increase in them. And then last year was just like insane. I mean, you're like, okay, we're going to go get them. Like, It's going to be as soon as we're setting lines out. I mean, sometimes I had it to where we would go and it was actually one of the craziest days. It was super, super rough. And I was cranking in my lines to run back up north and do another drift down and cranking in my line. And the rockfish came up and ate my planer while I was cranking it in. And then like you just see this giant silver flash like 20 feet behind the boat. I'm like, oh my God. Then I dropped it back in the free spool. He came back, ate the planer again, then came back and ate the eel. And you're watching that all 20 feet away. You're like, holy smokes, they're everywhere.
That's crazy.
You can have that going on. You caught some fish and then you're cranking it in out of nowhere and the fish is up top on the surface.
Trying to eat a planer. Cool. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. You'll have that a lot. We've had that every couple of trips. We'll have a rockfish just come up and just smoke the planer.
Oh, that's awesome. Just seeing it. Whenever you see a fish get really aggressive on the eat, I think that's one of the reasons that cobia fishing is so fun. It's just like watching a fish eat is probably just one of the most exhilarating things. That's why like a topwater trout bite is so explosive and fun. It just doesn't get any better than that. And remind folks that are looking to book with you what kind of boat you've got and what that setup is like for those rockfish trips.
Yeah, so we've got a 30-foot Atlantic pilot house that we'll be taking you guys out in. We got a full cabin and everything like that, so you'll be out of the wind, direct wind, and rain if it happens. Mm-hmm. We've got a heater set up now, so you'd be nice and warm. And I usually have like a box of hand warmers and stuff like that we hand out to people if you guys need that. But I mean, usually when the action starts, you start heating up and you forget all about the cold.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
definitely bring some coffee.
Mm-hmm.
Be nice and warm. But when the action starts, you forget all about it.
That's good to know. I can tell you, it's like you either get the action going or you just get so numb that you don't even feel the cold anymore. So it doesn't matter. But that's fishing. So I was talking to a coworker about some fishing, and he was like, "Man, I feel like you guys are like some sort of special type of masochist that just love to go out there and freeze to death." I'm like, "Look, man, you ever feel the power of a 500-pound tuna or a big rockfish on the other end? You would understand, So those of us who have experienced it, we get the tug is the drug. It's hard to explain until you've actually experienced it.
Well, it's kind of like hunting. Everyone's like, "Oh, what type of you hunt with a 30-06? Wow, that kicks a lot." Yeah, well, when you got a giant buck in front of you or a deer that you want to shoot, you forget all about it. You don't even feel it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep.
You just zone out, you get in the mode, and you just go straight into the, adrenaline or, the excitement just kind of takes over and everything else just doesn't matter. That's the whole point of it. That's the rush.
Yep, absolutely. And speaking of that, I'm very excited. I'll be down in Alabama here in the next 36 hours chasing a buck myself with old Butch Theory from the Alabama Saltwater Fishing Report. So I got to experience that for the first time last year. And there is definitely something to the buck fever. I will never forget the first time taking that safety off when I had one in my sights. And man, I could not control my heart rate. It was just out of control. And I had to put the safety back on and like catch my breath before I could, actually make the shot. So it is an exciting moment.
Absolutely. Well, hopefully you get on them down there.
Yeah, I'm hoping to.
Be a good time. Hopefully it'll be a little bit warmer.
Yeah, it's supposed to be like a high of 50. I'm just hoping to get to point the gun at one that has some antlers on them this year. So got a nice doe last year. She was tasty, but I definitely want to get one with some antlers. So, well, Captain Robbie, it's always a pleasure to chat through some of these different species with you and get to pick your brain as a subject matter expert with so many years of experience. So thanks for being on the show and sharing with our listeners, man. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure, man. Yep, likewise. All right, guys, stick around for a word from our sponsors that make this great content free for you each and every week, and we'll be back with you real soon for the What Did You Learn? Tired of battling salt corrosion on your boat, trailer, and reels? Meet Salt's Gone, your ultimate solution. This powerful, instantly acting chelating agent tackles salt and brine with ease, featuring corrosion inhibitors to protect against future damage and surfactants for a thorough clean. Salt's Gone is pH neutral, making it safe for all boat materials: metal, glass, paint, vinyl wraps, and more. Highly concentrated, just 1 gallon creates 100 gallons of ready-to-use solution. Apply it with or without running water. It's perfect for any situation. Use code GREATDAYS10 to save 10% at saltsgone.com. Or if you need faster delivery, use Amazon or your favorite retailer. Sam Rust Seafood, your locally trusted source for premium wholesale seafood. Servicing customers from Hampton Roads down through the Outer Banks, Richmond, and surrounding areas, including Fredericksburg, Charlottesville, and Lynchburg, for over 80 years. Committed to the highest standards in the industry, Sam Rust distributes the best of the ocean directly to your restaurant, hotel, or grocery store on time and at a great price. Visit samrust.com to discover how quality, tradition, and sustainability come together. So don't cuss, call Sam Rust. All right, guys. Well, welcome to the What Did You Learn? I am joining you from the Atlanta airport on my way down to Mobile, Alabama, to meet up with Butch Theory of Great Days Outdoors to hopefully track down a nice-looking buck and hopefully bag him. So, talking about bluefin tuna with Captain Bill, it was definitely a learning opportunity because I realized after he shared, and we'll put this in the Facebook post, after he shared what a real tuna mark looks like, I realized that a lot of the marks I was seeing on the screen that I got really excited about weren't tuna at all. They were actually large amounts of bait that I was seeing, vertically up and down in the column. And so, thinking through, looking at my depth finder and considering that, a bluefin tuna is on average, 4 to 6 feet, it's probably unlikely that if I see a mark, even though it looks like a big boomerang, if it's spanning 12 feet vertically in the water column, That's probably not a bluefin tuna. So that was definitely a good takeaway from talking to Captain Bill. And then diving into tog fishing with Captain Robbie, I can definitely go back in time. And it's been several years, almost a decade, that I went tog fishing. I missed a lot of tautog, and I realized it was because I was not aware of how they approach a bait in contrast to other fish that suck a bait into their gullet. You know, these tautogs are going to be coming in and nibbling. So definitely waiting for that second, third little nibble thump before pulling and swinging is going to be the key to getting hooked up more on those guys. And then last but not least, striped bass. I've always wondered why people talk about bump trolling. It never made sense to me. But when he started talking about how those eels will spin once you're going too quickly versus that like 1.5 to 2 knots where those eels are actually swimming, it's going to be a totally different presentation to those striped bass, seeing a live bait that's actually swimming naturally versus a bait that's just being dragged through the water column. So guys, I hope you guys picked up on some cool tips this week. I am so fired up to go out there and catch some of these wintertime fish. It's definitely gotten cold really quickly. So I think 2 things that are important to remember is, number one, definitely check your weather before you go and make sure that it's going to be, that you're going to be dressed appropriately and that it's not going to blow up or get too nasty out there on you. And then 2, make sure that you're on a vessel that has all its safety checks done. If you're going to be chasing these bluefin and you think, oh, I'm just going to be out there at the NC line, but next thing you know, you're at the tower and then closer to the windmills, but you don't have your EPIRB or your Garmin inReach, that could set you up for a dangerous situation. So definitely in the wintertime, safety check, and always dress a little extra warm and prepare for the absolute worst, because the conditions when it's in the wintertime totally change the ball game in terms of the potential for life-threatening situations in contrast to the middle of the summer. So guys, tight lines to you all. I hope you all had a great Thanksgiving this past week, and we look forward to talking to you soon. Did you know every 40 seconds, someone has a heart attack or stroke? In that moment, every second counts and every critical decision matters. Air Medcare Network's air ambulance providers can provide life-saving care directly to those in need at a moment's notice. With 320 locations across 38 states, they're the largest air ambulance membership network. Rest assured, they've got you and your entire household covered. Membership is just $99 a year or just $79 for seniors. Visit gdo.deals/airmedcare to enroll. So that's going to wrap it up this week. Please subscribe, rate, and review wherever you listen to podcasts. And remember, to get your free AFTCO Camo Sunglasses Cleaning Cloth, just text the acronym LCBFR to 779-345-2918 to get your promo code and be added to our email list so we can send you the new show each week. You guys keep whacking them and be safe out there.